Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Naga Monchetti and John Kay.
Our headlines today. The SNP wins key seats, but its chance of winning an overall majority in the Scottish Parliament remain on a knife edge.
Counting continues in England. The Conservatives follow up their by-election win in Hartlepool with more significant gains over Labour.
It's better news for Labour in Wales as it matches its best ever Senedd election result.
Holiday bookings surge as 12 countries are added to the UK's green travel list, but the industry says it's too cautious.
Talking of which, that travel list, don't go to Istanbul, fans of Chelsea and Manchester City are told. And they're now calling on UEFA to move the Champions League final to Wembley after the government added Turkey to that red travel list.
And weather-wise, we're in the company of low pressure, introducing an unsettled story across much of the UK. But we'll also notice those temperatures rise. I'll return with all the details.
Good morning. It's Saturday, the 8th of May. Our top story is that the SNP's hopes of an outright majority in the Scottish Parliament still lie in the balance today.
Yes, with votes still being counted, the party needs another 26 seats to win total control. But two key targets of Dumbarton and Eastwood have been missed. With all the details, here's our Scotland editor, Sarah Smith.
Angus Robertson, Scottish National Party, 16,276.
Every seat that has changed hands in Scotland has gone to the SNP, with a dramatic victory in Edinburgh Central, previously held by former Tory leader Ruth Davidson. They also took Ayr from the Tories and East Lothian from Labour. It's a return for one of the SNP's big hitters.
In this most European of capital cities, people have resoundingly rejected the party of Brexit and Boris Johnson. The public has rejected all of the parties that want to block an independence referendum.
Nicola Sturgeon is confident she will win a mandate to hold another vote on leaving the UK and secure a remarkable fourth term in government.
If that is indeed the outcome of this election, I pledge today to get back to work immediately, to continue to steer this country through the crisis of COVID, to lead this country into recovery from COVID, and then, when the time is right, to offer this country the choice of a better future.
Voters who don't want independence appear to be using their votes tactically to back unionist parties. In Dumbarton, Labour held on as Tories switched to the party most likely to beat the SNP. While in Dumfriesshire, after a power cut and some emergency lighting, the Tories increased their vote at the expense of the Labour Party.
The Constitution was put front and centre in this campaign by the SNP and their desire to divide Scotland all over again. But Scottish Conservatives had a clear, ambitious plan for what we can do in the next Parliament if we can get rid of the threat of another independence referendum.
The SNP have made gains, but tactical voting by unionists in some of the key seats they hope to take means it now looks difficult, if not impossible, for them to achieve an overall majority. But with the addition of the Scottish Greens and the SNP, it seems clear there will be a pro-independence majority in the next Parliament. A feline interloper had to be carefully ejected from the count in Orkney. As the SNP held on to Airdrie and shots, Neil Gray's wife tweeted a request he bring home milk, and he did as he was told. Anis Sarwar has only been Scottish Labour leader for less than 3 months. In that short time, it appears he has not yet transformed Labour's really poor recent results.
Compared to where we were just 10 weeks ago when I took over this job, it's a magnificent turnaround. But I'm not pretending this journey is complete. I'm not pretending the project to change the Labour Party is complete.
Former First Minister Alex Salmond had hoped to make a comeback with his new Alapa party, but now admits they're unlikely to win a single seat. Sarah Smith, BBC News, Edinburgh.
Now, Alexander Mackenzie is at Holyrood for us this morning. Alexander, good morning to you. So when are we likely to know whether the SNP has hit that crucial number, that 65 seats for a majority?
Good morning, Naga. Well, that is the big question today, and we are likely to get an answer a bit later on. We keep hearing that it's very much on a knife edge. There are a total of 129 seats in the Scottish Parliament behind me now. 48 of these seats have already been declared. We're likely to get all the other results today. The SNP have got 39 seats so far. So far they haven't lost any of their seats. They've gained 2 from the Tories and 1 from Labour. But as Sarah said, they have missed out on a couple of seats that they were targeting. One of them, Dumbarton, which was the most marginal seat in Scotland. So because of that, it's possibly looking less likely that they may not get that overall majority, but we're not likely to know that until a bit later on. Nicola Sturgeon won her seat very comfortably in Glasgow's south side yesterday, and she said she was looking forward to getting back to work. She also made reference to a possible second referendum, and she said she talked about a choice for a better future. But Boris Johnson in the Daily Telegraph today has said he is not going to change his mind. He's not going to grant that second independence referendum.
Indeed. OK, well, the conversations continue. Alexandra, thanks very much. And at 7:30, we're going to talk to one of the SNP's victorious candidates, the Deputy First Minister, John Swinney.
Conversations continue. Counting continues as well. Across England, more results are expected as well over the weekend. And Labour will be hoping for victories in the mayoral contests in London, Greater Manchester and the West Midlands after those bruising defeats yesterday.
Well, so far, the Conservatives have made significant gains, including taking Hartlepool from the opposition for the first time in more than 60 years. You saw that here on this programme yesterday. Now, the Prime Minister has called the results encouraging. Here's more from our political correspondent, Jessica Parker.
Look at this guy, he looks a bit like...
Boris Johnson popped up in Hartlepool yesterday in more ways than one. The Tories riding high after taking a seat that Labour had held for decades.
It's a mandate for us to continue to deliver, for not just for the people of Hartlepool, not just for the people of the North East, but across the whole of the country. The public want politicians to get on with focusing on their needs and their priorities.
It signalled the Conservatives taking another bite out of traditional Labour territory. So, a tough picture for Keir Starmer in his first big electoral test as leader.
Well, I'm bitterly disappointed in the results. And, I take full responsibility for the results. And I will take full responsibility for fixing things. We have changed as a party, but we haven't set out a strong enough case to the country.
Can Labour take back towns like Hartlepool or look to break new ground? Big questions loom, with divided views on where the answers lie.
Underlying all this, and it's come up in your early report, is a disconnect, I have to say, between the middle class, more metropolitan side of our party, very much based in our cities, with London dominating, in fact, a couple of square miles in London, of North London very often, with our more working class voters, and they are the bedrock.
Councils will continue counting today, with the Tories so far taking control of a handful of further authorities. The Greens have made some gains too in terms of seats, with the Lib Dems claiming pockets of progress. Mayoral and Police and Crime Commission accounts will also run on through the weekend. It really is a marathon, not a sprint. Jessica Parker, BBC News.
Well, in Wales, Labour are set to stay in power after matching their best ever Senedd election result by taking 30 of the 60 seats in the Welsh Parliament.
First Minister Mark Drakeford said his party had exceeded expectations after ending Friday just 1 seat short of a majority. Counting will continue today, as our Wales correspondent Thomas Morgan reports.
After 22 years in charge, Mark Drakeford's Welsh Labour was predicted to be on the defensive in this election. But they've defied the polls and pundits, holding on to 27 constituency seats, the same result as 2016.
I will do whatever I can do to make sure that Wales has the government it needs, stable and progressive.
And like in England, it appears the UKIP vote here that led to them winning 7 seats 5 years ago has been split between Labour and Conservatives.
Well, thank you very much, returning officer.
The Tories have benefited by gaining 2 seats and Labour increased their share.
Mark Drakeford's Welsh Labour has very quietly subverted expectations of how well the party would be doing. It's not a repeat of what's happened in England. This is a very distinctly Welsh election, and it's not panned out as some might have thought.
Plaid Cymru will be licking their wounds. They've lost former leader Leanne Wood and failed to make any gains. Meanwhile, after losing their only constituency, the Lib Dems regained a regional seat. As Wales begins to return to some sort of normality, this year's result may have proven that Wales has been satisfied with Labour's stewardship throughout the pandemic and have voted for another round. Thomas Morgan, BBC News.
There's been a surge of holiday bookings after 12 destinations, including Portugal, Gibraltar and Israel, were added to the government's so-called green list.
Yeah, it means that travellers returning to England from those countries will no longer have to self-isolate when they get back from the 17th of May. However, some travel firms have said this approach is overly cautious, as our business correspondent Katie Austin reports.
It's been months since holidays to places like this were allowed.
International leisure trips will be allowed again from the 17th of May, but there will still be restrictions in place under the traffic lights system. This is the list of the 12 countries, the green list, where there won't be a requirement to quarantine when returning to England, although people will need to take a PCR test. That doesn't mean, though, that all these destinations are currently welcoming British tourists. Some, like Australia, are not.
In Portugal, being classed as green was welcome news.
The British community and the British population in terms of tourism industry plays a massive role in the Portuguese economy. This is a happy moment for now. It's a happy moment for everyone. Happy moment for Portugal, for England. It's coming back together again, and this is just great news.
Major airlines have already announced extra flights, but there's huge frustration in the travel industry that today's list isn't longer. It will be reviewed every 3 weeks.
I've already seen on speculation that there's been big demand into Portugal as an example, so we are adding on as much capacity we can there, and then also to other destinations that is on that green list. But of course now I think also that within the next 3 weeks the government's going to need to also then add on a number of other European countries on there, and we're going to prepare ourselves also for that.
The Transport Secretary said caution was important.
We have to turn the key slowly, and green list countries will be placed on a watch list if we start to have any concerns. And if it's necessary because of a new upswing in cases or a new variant, we'll not hesitate to act fast and withdraw green status.
Yesterday's announcement has provided clarity for some, but not others. Alan has cancelled his plan to drive across Europe to the Netherlands in early June.
Mainly because of the uncertainty, but coupled very closely with the increased costs of the PCR tests, whether we would be actually stranded overseas. And the next time I think the government said they were going to look at the traffic light list is not going to be for another 3 weeks at least. So we are thinking of travelling on the 6th of June. So it's just not viable for us, unfortunately.
Progress on vaccinations is now a big factor determining the future growth of that green country list. For now, holidays are back, but the options are limited. Katie Austin, BBC News.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.